The Friday the 13th franchise has grossed over $468 million at the box office worldwide since its debut in 1981, having released 12 films in total, including the crossover with Nightmare on Elm Street. Our fascination and love for the machete-wielding, hockey-masked slasher has transcended beyond film, with Jason crossing over into video games, comic books, board games, and even some short novels. On screen, we have seen our slasher icon evolve from a deformed boy whose mother sought out revenge for his supposed death to a man wearing a sack over his head, chasing after teens in the camp Crystal Lake, to the hockey mask undead monster he is today. Sadly, the franchise fell into a legal rights dispute, halting the franchise from moving forward for several years, leaving fans thirsty for more. And while we were at a standstill in the big screen films, the ideas for what was next for Jason never stopped. Some even being turned into fan films by ambitious filmmakers looking to give fans what they wanted. More Jason! Today, we are going to talk about the 5 failed Friday the 13th sequels that you may not have,
or probably,
heard of.
Number 5. Friday the 13th, the CW series. In 2015, CW picked up a pilot from writers Steve Mitchell and Craig Van Sickle, creators of the 1996 NBC series The Pretender, which reimagined Friday the 13th as a horror crime thriller that was grounded in reality. It would have been about a detective trying to find his missing brother at Camp Crystal Lake in a case linked to Jason Voorhees, despite the murders having stopped years prior. Only as his investigation leads him deeper into the lore of Jason, it is only a matter of time before Jason returns to wreak havoc on Crystal Lake again. The series would have explored 2 timelines. One set in the past, detailing Jason's previous attacks in possible flashbacks, and then there would be a present-day storyline, which means we would have had 2 versions of Jason in the show. It's certainly an idea that seems like it would have taken the franchise in a brand new direction. There was a picture revealed as to what Jason would have looked like had it been picked up. However, the CW was not the best place for it, and instead it was passed on in favor of Frequency and more Riverdale. Number 4.
Jason Goes to Court. Well, sort of, as there was no official name for the film. In an early draft of Freddy vs. Jason, a script from Brannon Braga and Ronald Moore, known for their few Star Trek films, penned a story that was modeled after Wes Craven's New Nightmare, where Jason was a real killer that was fictionalized in the Friday the 13th movies. Jason is brought to trial to face justice for a series of murders, and the entity of Freddy attempts to use Jason as a way to resurrect himself so that he could begin his killing spree once again. This eventually leads to a battle between them, attracting another horror icon into the fold to bring peace between them. That's right, folks, Hellraiser's Pinhead. While the idea of Jason in court fell to the wayside, it was spoofed in the cartoon game Friday the 13th Killer Puzzle.
Number 3. Freddy vs. Jason Millennium Massacre. The number of attempts to create a crossover of Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees is astounding. In the 90s, New Line Cinema was desperate to bring Freddy vs. Jason to the big screen and had spent millions of dollars on several writers and scripts. In 1996, Sean Cunningham commissioned Demon Knight writers Cyrus Voris and Ethan Reif to write Freddy vs. Jason Millennium Massacre. According to NightmareOnElmStreetFilms.com, it would have played on the paranoia of the apocalypse happening in the year 2000 that was popular in the late 90s, featuring pagan mythology and even a Freddy cult. The story would reveal that Jason used to live on Elm Street, and was molested by Krueger as a child, and his parents were part of the lynch mob who killed Freddy. It would be revealed that it was not only Freddy who drowned Jason, but that he was also the one who reanimated his corpse in the Friday franchise and directed him to kill everyone.
Hear my voice and live again!
This would lead to a final battle in hell in front of Satan, where both characters would end up being erased from history. Number 2.
Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash. After years of development hell, Freddy vs. Jason was finally made, which critics hated but audiences enjoyed, and it made its money back and then some, making over $116 million. It is still the highest grossing movie of both franchises, which is why it's baffling that sequels were not created. Well, there was almost one in the form of Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash. Yes, as in Ash Williams, for those of you that don't know, from the Evil Dead franchise. 5 years after the events of the film Freddy vs. Jason, and 16 years after the end of Army of Darkness.
Hail to the king, baby.
Freddy would be trapped inside the mind of Jason, where he learns that the Necronomicon holds the key to his resurrection, and it's hidden in the old Voorhees home. Freddy, in the guise of Pamela Voorhees, instructs Jason to retrieve the book, where he crosses paths with Ash, who is visiting a Crystal Lake S-Mart. Ash is unable to prevent Jason from retrieving the book, allowing Freddy to return, only now with the powers of the Necronomicon. And we will not tell you anything further, because while the movie never saw the light of day, and the concept would instead be reused in the form of a well-received comic book series.
Number 1. Found Footage Friday. With the success of Paranormal Activity and other found footage films, Paramount became interested in spinning a new film for Friday the 13th, but through the lens of found footage film, feeling that it could rejuvenate the franchise. This would be a massive shift, as the viewer would no longer be watching a massive hockey mask killer stalking a group of campers and killing those sex-crazed kids, which many of us all watch the films for, right? Jason killing a camper in a sleeping bag is just pure joy. Now viewers would switch into the camper's point of view and trying to escape Jason. Friday the 13th, 2009 producers Brad Fuller and Andrew Form balked at the idea, saying changing the formula and structure of how the franchise was built would not work.
Welcome back to another episode of 31 Days of Halloween on the Pop 5, and we are looking at some more Lost sequels. Hopefully you enjoyed the last one. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go and check out the Lost sequels for the Halloween franchise. And first, before we get into these, I'm going to give you a little bonus. When we met Ken Kersinger, who played Jason and Freddy vs. Jason, he revealed another one, which was Freddy vs. Jason vs. Stan. How that played out was that time has passed, and Stan, along with a lot of other teenagers, kind of saw Freddy and Jason as creepypasta, urban legends, didn't really believe it at the time. So Stan went on an urban legend hunt for Jason Voorhees at Camp Crystal Lake, where he came across something. I don't remember what it exactly was. He came across something where he uncovered Jason or Freddy, and then he ends up becoming possessed by Freddy, and then Jason and him battle off. I thought that was an interesting concept.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to hear about it from Ken Kersinger himself.
I'll have to ask him to tell that story again next month.
When we see him again, finally, since we need him to sign our Freddy vs. Jason piece.
Yes. All right, now I'm going to talk about the film that I don't really want to spend much time on, but Jason Goes to Court. Sounds a little interesting, and then it kind of sounds like it falls apart.
But how does that work anyway? Because Jason doesn't talk. So, I mean, he's just going to, sit there? I don't know. I think it's weird.
It's almost, and we probably don't know the full story, but it almost seems like that Silence of the Lambs version of Halloween, where it's like, wait a minute, Michael doesn't talk. How's he going to be helping people solve cases?
Yeah.
Well, that's what was rumored. That wasn't really the case. Here, you would have to think, is it Jason just lumbering around, sitting in court, and then the whole Freddy aspect with him trying to possess Jason, just think I need more details of it, but I don't really care for it. And then having Pinhead show up at the end, it's like, no, guys, let's not fight. Let's kill together or something,
I honestly think that Ash or Michael Myers would better fit with them than Pinhead. I just don't see him on the level of them. Like, they're just not the same. I just don't see it.
Now, the CW series, another one with an interesting concept. You would have their two timelines going, your flashback scenes of Jason causing havoc then, and then eventually the detective finding him. So I'm thinking probably the idea would be there's the investigation for the maybe the first part of the season where you get the flashbacks of Jason.
Yeah.
And then as the detective gets closer, that's when Jason really comes out. And then we get to see Carnage kind of happen all over again.
I could see where the CW felt like it wasn't the right fit. And I know lots of people who love, different CW shows. They're not for me. I'm probably too old, but they're not for me. And I really don't want them touching any of these classics. I just don't.
Millennium Massacre sounds interesting, but I don't like how they would be retconning the whole entire backstory of Jason, where you have Jason now being killed by Freddy Krueger, and you have the parents involved. I think you're meddling too much with the past and trying to bring them together. I don't think that really works. And then, of course, as you noted in the notes, because this was co-written by you, bringing in the Millennium stuff, it was, look, we lived through it. It was okay. Like, there wasn't that many standout movies that said, all right, this is fantastic. Like, I can think of, Stigmata was good, End of Days was good.
Yeah.
But now it's like, what other ones, really jump out at you and say, yeah, this is really great. So I don't think that kind of would have worked. I think it would have fell flat a little bit.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that it doesn't work with the whole Millennium thing, because honestly, it wasn't even that big a deal. So, I mean, they can say whatever they want to, but we lived through it. It really wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, really, it was more so like kind of the boomers that were making a big deal out of it. Like, they thought the world was gonna end.
It would have aged. This would have aged very poorly.
I think so.
Yeah, I think this would probably have been the worst of it, and they would have never attempted to do a crossover at any horror movie ever again.
Yeah, right. It just would have ruined it. So I think it's just better that it was brushed under the rug and left alone.
Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, which a lot of you already know about. It's been talked about for many years. There's a comic book series. Actually, there's several comic book series based on it. This would have been a goldmine.
Yeah, when we had heard a long time ago that it was possibly going to be a movie. We were super excited and couldn't wait, and then
I'm sure everybody was.
It just didn't happen. And that sucks, because I would have liked that a lot.
And unfortunately, this is not something that's ever going to ever have a possibility of being made, because there's only one Bruce Campbell. There's only one Ash. Now, as everybody really groans and gripes over Robert Englund and being Freddy Krueger, nobody else ever going to be able to replace him. You can kind of replace him. People get over it. It's going to happen eventually. But if you want more Freddy movies, we're going to have to move on from Robert Englund.
Robert Englund's 75, people. Like, you're going to have to move on. And there are viable candidates that could play him. I know it sucks. I love him too. I mean, the first movie came out when I was 7. Like, he's my childhood, my adulthood, he's everything. So I get it. I do.
The actor that plays Freddy in Dylan's New Nightmare, which is a fan film on YouTube for free, which is a sequel to Wes Craven's New Nightmare, he did a pretty good job. He looked pretty good.
He did look pretty good.
Had a good sound to him. So it's possible. Have the right script. We're going to have Freddy again. But there's never going to be a Bruce Campbell again. So this is just completely dead in the water.
No, and because, the whole thing with Ash is that he's not somebody who has makeup on him. It's just who he is, how he looks. And you're not going to have somebody else that looks like him, has the chin, and, now he's gone completely white or gray or whatever. I mean, he's getting older too, right? So it sucks. So this is not going to happen.
Yeah, I have to go and pick up the comic book series, so Hopefully I will come across it again at a convention and get my hands on it this time. Signed. Anyway, Found Footage Friday. I like the idea of that.
I do too, and I know they're saying like the whole structure, like you're changing the whole formula, it's not gonna work, and maybe it wouldn't have worked. I don't know that it would have worked, but I would have been interested in seeing it.
I think it may be a little bit more intense if we had the point of view changed. I know we all go to see like all the cool kills, you know, seeing the guy's head put through a camper, the beating of the sleeping bag, all that stuff on there. But I think this would have been a little bit more scary if it was pulled off correctly.
Yeah, I think so too. I definitely think it's got like the creep factor because it's found footage, right? I mean, so many of those movies were successful and they were creepy. So I think that if it had been done right, and obviously not by those people because they were like totally against it, I think with the right people on board, it could have been something cool, and I personally would like to see it.
Yeah, maybe we get to see a fan film of it eventually. If it's already out there, let me know by dropping it in the comments.
Yeah, maybe it is, and if it's not, then maybe someone should do it.
Yeah, I'm thinking like this would be in like a bluish tone, grayish tone type of film. I think it would be very good. So, what other Friday the 13th films that were possibly going to be made that were lost that you think should be on this list? Drop it in the comments. And this is our second episode of the 31 Days of Halloween. So we have some cool ones coming up next. And don't forget, you like Halloween, right? So you need to.
I hope you do if you watch this channel. I feel like it's kind of a given. I don't know.
I got nothing. Don't forget to
like, comment, share, and subscribe.
Yes, we appreciate you joining us for another spooky season, another 31 Days of Halloween, and we appreciate you for tuning into all of our videos. So thank you, and we'll see you on the next. See ya.